Okay, so welcome to our last slot, our last event here on the adaptTo in this year. Lightning Talks, we are doing this for a lot of years. This is always a room for you as participants to show something you think is nice to share, it's nice to show. And this year we have only 3 slots. I think we are all very tired from all this COVID and online and so on. So it's fine, but still give a big applause to the 3 speakers we have today with your emojis. Thanks. And I have here a timer as additional speaker who will really count down the time. So, and with this, I would like to hand over at first to Jörg with his talk, why adaptTo, the API call, is a good thing. So have fun with Jörg.
Hi. So, okay, I have my 10 minutes. So my thing, my lightning talk is about why adaptTo is a good thing. Actually, I think the conference is a really good thing, but I also think that the API call is a good thing. So this is a response a little bit on Daniel's presentation yesterday, where he mentioned that adaptTo should be avoided because it might return null. And I've seen many cases where we did not do any of these null checks, and because people just started to adapting. Yeah, in many cases it's working, but of course there are edge cases when it's not actually working, and therefore it's better if you just do the null checks. And that's something I assume that Daniel thinks also. Well, if there is a getter, you should use it. And I totally agree to that if you have a getter, as an example, I think it was the page manager, you can actually get a page manager from the page object. You don't need to adapt to it. But that's, in a few, it's just, let's say, a few cases where this actually works. Because when you're sticking to the same framework, I will call it. Because this adaptTo call has been there for a really long time, and it's there for a reason. And the reason is called extensibility. Because Sling is a framework, we cannot make any reference to AEM classes. That means it's not possible to create something like a resource get page method. Because one thing is Sling, the other one is AEM. And that's also not extensible in other ways. That means even if Adobe would follow the same pattern, you couldn't use it. You could not use a resource adaptTo my own class, and you could not just do the same with page. And another thing is we wanted to, I guess so, I wasn't there at the design time, but I think that we wanted that the designers try to avoid such things like a page factory get resource, or just creating a new page based on a resource, because this would expose a lot of implementation classes. And we know what happens when you expose implementation classes in your interface. People start to inherit from these, and so on and so on and so on. It's not really a good design thing. While in the above mentioned pattern, we are just exposing an interface. Of course, an interface comes with its own problems. We are not inheriting from an implementation, but we're inheriting an interface, which could make it more problematic to evolve the interface. It's something Dominic and Carsten has talked about in this adaptTo as well. Okay, so I think adaptTo is actually a really cool thing, because it allows you to, well, deal with or create new levels of abstractions in your application. And you can just, let's say, if that what you implement is based on resource, you can just implement an adapter factory and register it, and then you can resource adaptTo my business object.class. That's very, very easy, and it's the same pattern all over again, and it actually works very well. So the only problem is this null. And I found that the first reference to, well, this null is not nice, I found this reference in 2014 in this Sling ticket, which is Justin Edelson opened, and it's actually still open. Later this year, there was a lengthy discussion on the Sling developer mailing list. I think it was 53 emails, so it's quite lengthy, and you can still find it on the mailing archive. It's called adaptTo and Results of June 2014. And actually, I'm not sure if adaptTo relates to the conference or to the call, because I think June 2014, this was before the yearly adaptTo conference. So it was a discussion and, well, open-ended, no conclusion. And then Robert Montano just came up, posted on this 5-year-old ticket something in 2019, suggesting, okay, we could use optional, Java optionals, and maybe a default implementation, and then you have at least a chance to that adaptTo, your class, would return an optional. Well, it's still not. You still need to check this optional. And of course, some people argued, well, an exception would be better. But of course, when we just try to add some type exception is not possible because, well, this is used wherever. We cannot just change it in an incompatible way. So the alternative would have been to throw a runtime exception. Yeah, I'm not sure if a runtime exception is better than an null pointer. You can probably catch it easier, but the debugging is the same hard thing. So personally, if it's not just, let's say, if the optional is present, you can consider it the same as a null check. If that's the only reason you use optional, you can do a null check. But if you want to use this, you have to use your typical resource adaptTo page class. If page is not null, then do the next thing, do the next check, and you have typically your hierarchy. And if you can map this in whole in a stream and filter and do whatever is necessary, I think this makes sense here. And for every other case, probably still catching the null, but I don't think that this is a really a problem. And I still think adaptTo has its value. So I think that's all from my lightning talk. Not much more. Thank you.